What I hear you saying is that a person cannot write literature on experiences that are not his own.
Not well. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, even in literary studies, anywhere else except in Shakespeare. So they say he's the exception. So we don't need to assume that Shakespeare went to Italy, even though he's obsessed with Italy and details about Italy that even tourists of the time wouldn't know. He really had to experience Italy in a significant way. That and countless other specialties, areas of education that Shakespeare seems to have access to, you don't just pop out of the womb knowing this stuff, knowing military history and falconry, even if you want to say, okay, yes, but he was a genius. That's fine, but how is that genius manifested? How is that genius cultivated? And then when does it emerge and how? And that's what makes more sense with an alternate candidate other than the grain merchant from Stratford.
So now I want to ask you, why does it matter what person Shakespeare was? Shakespeare is the name of the author of a bunch of plays that are wonderful. Why do we care who he is?
It is occasionally handy, even for me, to be able to say, all right, let's put all that aside and let's just appreciate this play. And of course, more classes than not that I teach in Shakespeare do just that. But overall, when you get done with a play and you think, well, that's nice, what was that? Or that's horrific, is there no justice in the world? What was that? Then you're almost at a point where it doesn't make sense unless you can tie it in to somebody's life and experiences. If it's just some Stratford guy who wakes up one morning and thinks he's just got to go all geopolitical on the abstract nature of desire, what is that? It's not even, fantasy. It's just, it certainly wouldn't survive the test of time. Nobody would care. Another impulse is these plays were just for entertainment. We're just doing them in injustice to be spending all this time on them and thinking about them. They were just meant for people to have a good time. I don't know how you can even say that, because half the plays couldn't be performed in the allotted time before sundown and people had to go home. And if you're just, making people laugh, a whole lot of more Shakespeare characters would just fall on their ass instead of alluding to, canal systems in Italy and, using metaphoric language of falconry that your average Elizabethan watching a play has no idea about. So there's got to be more there than just throwaway entertainment. There's got to be more there than just Shakespeare wanted to make a buck. I mean, this is no way to make a buck, is write plays and hope people go to them. So ultimately, you get to the end of a play and think, well, what was this? And if it's authentic, if it's really coming from someone's experiences, someone's life, someone trying to work through confusions and traumas and agonies and still, even explore the nature of comedy. What is funny? Can you have comedy without somebody getting hurt? These are things that make more sense and resonate with you and can matter to you if they really do hook up with somebody's life. And they'll hook up with your own as well, and rather than just, a whim.
Is that where timelessness comes from? Why Shakespeare is a classic?
I think so. I think, like the case with All's Well That Ends Well, not really processed into a way that matches up with others. Shakespeare's gift is in being able to take his own experiences, transform them into experiences that his original audience, and I think Queen Elizabeth is always who he's writing for, that she is going to learn something here, that look, here's her intolerance manifested in some characters in a play with some hints that's going to make her, trigger her recollection and recognition of herself in these characters. And then probably some appeal. Be more merciful to people who are in the same situation as you, really, when you look at it the right way. So when he's taking his own experiences and making them relevant to somebody like Queen Elizabeth or other courtiers or, his immediate audience, that's the first step in making these things universal. And, one more transformational step, and you've got universal Shakespeare and things that still resonate, even if we are not Queen Elizabeth.
So if these plays were not written for the masses who didn't understand cordial metaphor, how did they survive through the ages? Was there a dip in popularity after his death and then sort of a resurrection? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, it seems as if what makes the most sense here, and you even have some evidence of drastic revision. Shakespeare was the most amazing reviser of his own work. That a lot of these, maybe most or all, started as court entertainments. In 1586, the Earl of Oxford was given a £1,000 annuity by Queen Elizabeth with no explanation of what this was for, coming out of Secret Service funds. He wasn't spying on the Pope or the Jesuits. And she was cheap. So really the only logical explanation for us, I think, is that she recognized the power, the propagandistic power of these plays, that transforming these court entertainments for the general public was his commission. That's what he was supposed to do. Adopting, a fake name so that the general public wouldn't recognize how close to the center of power and maybe what he's really representing, what's really going on there. So the plays start coming out, in quarto editions in the 90s, and indeed they put England on the map finally in terms of the Renaissance. It's been going on for 200 years in Italy, and France caught on 100 years ago. Where is England? And so there's some sonnets earlier in the season, but Shakespeare does it, and the madrigal, which I think Oxford is also responsible for too. It worked. England had a sense of unity too. It needed it. In 1586, we're getting ready for war with Spain. We need a sense of national pride, and especially the history plays in probably earlier versions than we have them now accomplish that.
Okay, I want to get into a little bit more of a theoretical question now. I hear a lot of people talk about how travel is a way to expand your mind, see new people, meet new people, see new cultures, and grow as a person. I want to know how actual physical travel compares to traveling within literature, which is the travel medium. It's also been referred to as the travel medium. I couldn't have a little brother who's obnoxious and lives in Ashland or something, but there could be a novel about that kind of experience that I could read and get into. So in that way, I'm traveling almost to another kind of life. And I've heard that argument made, that that's the value in fiction in general. And so I thought...
Yeah, that I agree with too. And you're not going to care much about the little brother part if you're not thinking in those terms somehow. That there's someone else in your life who seems in a way like a little brother, and so you're exploring that kind of relationship in literature and learning something by it. Certainly most writers will tell you that when they are doing their best, they're inhabiting all their characters, but they're also inhabiting those characters probably through shadows or forms of other people they know. So they're trying to empathize in a way, or trying to find that element of themselves in others. And that's really useful, and that I think is a more direct connection to the value that we can have in literature from our end of it as readers or viewers.
So as a final question, I kind of want to go back to this idea about the value of humanistic learning, research, scholarship, and passing that on to generations of students. Especially in light of how valuable the sciences are today and how they're almost approaching integration with humanities, or at least social science topics. Neuroscience is learning a lot about human behavior. So in light of almost a trend toward bridging gaps between humanities and science, I'd like you to comment on, again, the value that a humanistic education might bring to students or to people in general.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a different angle on the same stuff. I sometimes will team teach or guest lecture in entomology, and so bugs in lit is another angle on it. And I certainly I don't want to insult the sciences, but it's just not enough for me to have these kind of mechanical or technical explanations of how things work and what's going on, insofar as they can tell us all this. But really feel like what we don't need to address there is why, or what's the point, or what's the value of knowing all this beyond just being able to manipulate it a little bit better and minimize the unintentional consequences. I don't know if the bugs are a good example, but another kind of mind has asked some questions about the meaning of bugs. And, when you approach that, what do bugs mean in Aesop's fables, or what do bugs mean in Kafka's Metamorphosis? You address that same topic in a way that does answer those more important questions, like what is the meaning of this, or what's the importance of this? Why does this matter? And
to us,
what am I going to, what's the bug in me? How do I relate to these bugs? What do they have to do with my human experience?
Well, thank you, Dr. Delahoyde, for coming to see me. It's been a pleasure to talk to you here, so maybe I'll see you here in the studio again sometime.
Absolutely, thank you.